If things continue the way they have been for the Atlanta Braves, should they just blow it up? I'll answer that question and more on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves on X and Locked On Braves on Instagram. If you're new and watching this on YouTube, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, and leave me a comment down below. And if you're listening on the audio version, you can help out by leaving me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Thanks so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen, or maybe it's your second listen. Maybe it's the second podcast of the day. Either way, thanks so much for your support being every day or here at a Locked On Braves. And yes, it is our weekly mailbag episode, a late night edition as the Braves are playing out on the West Coast. Currently, Craig Kimbrell into the game just gives up a bloop base hit after Matt Olson hit a home run to tie it up. So that's where we are in the game as we record late on a Friday night. Got over 30 questions I'm going to try to get to today. Probably not going to happen, but I'm going to do my best. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bet when your first $5 bet wins. As I said, over 30 questions to get to on today's episode. A lot of them are fairly similar, but let's go ahead and just jump into this one. This one from LeBronathan Jr., who says, was wondering what your opinion on Geraldo Quintero was. I watched him play against my hometown AA team this week, and he seems to have incredible power for a guy his size. And his size is 5'5". Sean Murphy just nailed a player at second. That is nice to see. I mean, it's a guy he's showing a lot of pop this year. His ISO is 250. If that were to continue, maybe you had another little Ozzy Albies on your hand, but I don't view him as a top 30 prospect in the system. But again, that power output continues like that, and the speed, maybe there's something there, but for now, I'm not reading too much into it. Julie Craig, is there a chance that the Braves will be sellers at the trade deadline? So yes, there very much is a chance the Braves will be sellers at the deadline if they continue the trend that they are on. And for me, what I've been saying is that if they are more than 5 games out going into the trade deadline, I think you're at least doing a soft sale. And I don't know that we'll see any kind of hard sell. And there's some other questions too about who the Braves could trade. But yeah, absolutely. If the Braves are more than 5 games out come the trade deadline, I think they certainly should look to at least do a soft sale this season. Emmanuel, where is the acclaimed SNIT team meeting that once became famous for turning their season around? I mean, we don't know for sure that they haven't had one of those. Sometimes those are closed doors before reporters get in there. So we don't know for sure. But I mean, a SNIT meeting, a players only team meeting, something needs to happen if it hasn't happened already. And again, maybe it has, and it just hasn't been reported. Maybe they did it before reporters were allowed in. But anything, why not at least try it at this point to get the team going? Brandel Bushnell says, could you see Reynaldo Lopez coming back as a bullpen arm this season, or is he a starter all the way? So I think, to answer your question simply, yes, and I think he absolutely should if he's able to come back this season and if the Braves are still in contention. If they're not in contention, then maybe you just kind of hold him out and get him ready for 2026. But if he is able to come back this year, which I think is still a bit questionable, then yes, I think he absolutely comes back in some sort of bullpen role. It also might depend on what the rotation is like at that point and how badly you might need him. And it doesn't mean that he has to be a reliever going forward. But I think for this year, if you were able to get Joe Jimenez and Reynaldo Lopez back in the bullpen for the final couple of months of the season, maybe that even increases the likelihood that Reynaldo gets back this year. That could be a big boost to the bullpen later in the year. Dustin Mounts, if Profar comes back and starts off playing well, would he be a trade option for anything? Also, is he due back at the end of the month? When is he allowed to start an assignment in the minor leagues? An estimated date he might be back with the Braves. I believe the first time that he can come back is, I believe it's June 4th. Not June 4th, July 4th. So yeah, definitely at the beginning of next month is when Profar can return. So I'd guess that we'd see some sort of rehab assignment at the middle of this month, that you could see that for Jerickson Profar, with him likely to return at the beginning of July. If he comes back and starts playing well, it's a very short time frame for that to happen before the trade deadline. And I just don't know what what kind of value you would get in that, because teams are obviously going to be very skeptical of his performance. Even if he were to come back and play well for a month, I think teams would be very skeptical of that. I think that feels more like something that you could do in the offseason. If he were to come back and have a great second half and you really just wanted to get rid of the player, you're afraid you got sold, bad goods, I could see them maybe doing it in the offseason. But I think it'd be a stretch to say that he can come back in July after not playing for a while. He'd basically have to play out of his mind for teams to really believe that it wasn't anything performance enhancing, and make a deal for him and pay him, $13 million the next 2 years. So I don't think it's very likely that would happen. E Goldie, in a scale of 1 to 10, how shocked are you by the way this season has gone so far? And if you had to place blame in one place, where would you turn? I'm always going to place blame on the players. The players play the game. I say that all the time. So I'm always going to place blame on the players. Even if you think this front office didn't do enough, and they didn't do enough, this team was still good enough, is still good enough to be playing better than the way that they have been. We've talked about it a lot. Your big hitters just not stepping up. Riley, Ozuna, Olsen, you look at their numbers overall and they look okay, but they just haven't been coming through in those clutch moments. So I'm always going to put most of the blame on the players. That doesn't mean they deserve all the blame. Certainly there's plenty to go around. The front office didn't do enough in the bullpen to help this team out. Snitker, certainly has made some bad choices and bad decisions this year in close games, which is all they pretty much play is close games. They're tied right now. But again, it ultimately comes down to the players. And now we got a pickoff too. So what is going on here? But how shocked am I? So 10's completely shocked. 1's not shocked. I think I'm at like a 10.5. I really was excited about this season. You put last year behind you and all the injuries that you had. You come back this year, you're mostly healthy. You got Acuna and Strider on the way. And, Strider hasn't looked himself since coming back. Acuna's been fantastic, but it hasn't been enough to overcome the rest of the ineptness of this offense. So I'd probably say I'm at a 10.5. I thought this team would come back really hungry this year. It looked like the offense we know that they can be, and they haven't. And they've been even worse than I could have imagined. You knew that first month could be rough. And honestly, I'm going a little long-winded and I got a lot of questions to get to, but honestly, I knew the first month could be tough. I thought they would recover in the middle of May and get to and over 500, and they did. It's really just been these last 2 or 3 weeks. Like the point that they got to in middle May where they did get over 500, if you would have told me that at the beginning that they're just, kind of hovering around 500, maybe they get over 500 that stretch in the middle of May, I'd have said, okay, I can see that. I can see them struggling, waiting for Acuna to come back, waiting for Strider to come back. It's a tough schedule in the first month. I could have seen that. It's really just been these last 2 or 3 weeks that have really shocked me, because I thought the middle of May, they would just completely crush that schedule, get several games over 500, and then just kind of take off from there. But instead they got over 500 and then have just completely plummeted and didn't do enough to take advantage of that May schedule. Jake, not me, another Jake says, who are your top 5 players you think could be traded at the deadline, and what would you want in return? So Iglesias, Ozuna, which I don't know. First of all, I don't know what you're going to get for Iglesias right now with how bad he's pitching. I don't know what you're going to get for Ozuna, a guy that has a torn hip. Chris Sale is the one that would be tough. And I think part of it depends on how much are you potentially going to blow things up. If it looks like this is going to be a full blow up in the offseason, we get to the trade deadline, they're 10 games under, they got no shot. You're going to, you ended up either firing the manager or just having a part ways situation. You're thinking about really having some roster turnover in the offseason and maybe kind of doing a soft rebuild, then I think you do trade Chris Sale. I don't want to trade him, especially if you're going to try to turn around and do this thing again in 2026. Why would you not want the guy that's won the Cy Young last year and after a little blip to begin this season has looked like the best pitcher in baseball again? I don't think you trade that. And if you do, and I think there's another question like this, if you do, it has to be for a king's ransom. It absolutely has to be. But those 3 in particular, look, I'd try to move Pierce Johnson. I mean, a good reliever, but if you can get a solid, prospect back for him at the deadline, I'd do that. Sean Murphy is the only other one. Again, and this is probably more of an offseason thing, but if Drake Baldwin's your catcher going forward, maybe you just see what you can get with Sean Murphy. Those are the top 5 I think that come to mind for me. But again, it all just depends on value. I'm not giving any of those guys away unless I'm getting something significant in return. For the instance of Chris Sale, if I'm finding the shortstop of the future, like I'm getting a top 10 shortstop prospect in all of baseball, it's got to be something like that, and preferably somebody that is close to Major League ready. All right, a lot more questions to get to on today's episode. The Braves are 4-4 going into the top of the 8th here as Kimbrel's able to get through the bottom of the 7th. So hopefully we'll have something exciting to talk about here live on this mailbag episode. We'll get into the rest of these questions here next. Whether you're gearing up for back-to-back meetings, shuttling kids back and forth to activities, or tackling an endless to-do list, your morning sets the tone for it all. That's why it should start with the perfect cup of coffee crafted just for you. Enter Trade Coffee. Trade is the #1 coffee destination in the U.S., delivering fresh, incredible coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Whether you're a cold brew fan or a pour-over purist, they've got a roast you'll love. And if the first match isn't perfect, Trade will replace it for free until they get it just right. I love that their prices are comparable to grocery store brands, but the flavor is on a whole other level. And maybe you're trying to stay up late for a West Coast trip. They can help you with that too. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering our customers 50% off your 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/lockedonmlb. That's TRADE.com/lockedonmlb for 50% off your 1-month trial. Again, drinktrade.com/lockedonmlb. Thank you as always, making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Go check out over the guys over at Locked On MLB Game Night. You're up late anyway. You might as well go over there and give them a listen. Get the biggest highlights from all around Major League Baseball each and every day throughout the season. Let's jump back into the questions, though. Caleb Calhoun says, if your manager or GM, what moves do you think make this season to right the ship or sell? If you're GM, what moves do you make in the offseason? You pick your manager for 26. Who this year or in offseason are you willing to trade, and what's your desired return? #1 free agent you want? That's a lot of questions. Sorry, Caleb. I don't know if I can get to all of those right now. In season, like I said, you're completely out of it. I look to trade some of those assets I talked about earlier and see if you can do a soft rebuild, kind of turn things around pretty quickly. Off season, again, I think it's some of those same moves. I think Sean Murphy is one that you probably really have to consider in the offseason, and I like Sean Murphy, and I think Sean Murphy is a really good catcher. But is there enough value there that you can get something significant back for him? I think you at least have to entertain that. I don't think, and this goes back to the whole blow up, scenario and title that we looked at. If you're going to blow this thing up, who are you realistically trading? Are you trading Michael Harris, a 25-year-old, even though he's really struggled, and I get all that? Are you trading Austin Riley? Are you trading Matt Olson? Are you trading Ronald? Like who are you really trading here? And again, that's probably a discussion we're going to have later on. And I'm going to do a bigger episode on that at some point, especially if we get to that case where they do just need to blow it up. I just don't see how it happens. I could see them maybe, again, moving on from a couple of players here or there. It's just hard for me to see them doing a complete blow up. I think if this season plays out the way that it does, just my guess, assumption, prediction here, I think Snitker's gone one way or the other, whether it's I'm stepping away or the front office saying, thank you for all you've given to this team. We're going to put you in a front office role, but we're going to get a new manager. I think that's happening if this continues. I think even if it doesn't continue, I've said all along, I think this is Snickers last year. I think that's going to be the big upheaval, and you're going to keep things most intact and see if that changes, if that is able to help this core turn things around. It's just really hard for me to see them completely blowing things up and trading a lot of those guys that I mentioned. So I don't think there's going to be too much turnover, but something major does have to happen. Julie Craig, today the Braves DFA'd Blewett. Wouldn't it have made more sense to DFA Montero? look, you could go either way. I think both of them need to be replaced. I mean, I think Montero's been worse. If that's the real question here, who's been worse, Montero or Blewett? I think it's Montero. I think there's probably a money aspect to that they're paying. They're actually paying Montero a little bit, and that's probably what it ultimately came down to. But both need to be replaced at some point. AA WX says there is a lot of negativity around the team right now, so I want to have a more general positive question. Who are your early predictions or dream lineup to light up Truist Park in the home run derby? So I want a bunch of lefties. I want to see people put one on top of the Chop House. I want to see Matt Olson from the Braves in there. Obviously, Ohtani would be a lot of fun. But just give me a bunch of lefties and see who can put one on top of the Chop House. But I don't really have too many names, I guess, that come to mind. I'm sure Acuna is going to want to be in it. But I honestly just want him to stay healthy and be ready for the second half. I think Acuna might be your lone representative for the Atlanta Braves, he and Chris Sale. But I'd love to see Matt Olson in a home run derby, hit some majestic shots on top of the Chop House. Kyle Schwarber, I think could hit some bombs up there too. Obviously, Aaron Judge. I think those would be some fun names. I know Judge is a righty, but he can hit him out anywhere. But those are some of the first names, I guess, that come to mind for me. It should be a lot of fun. Cross my fingers that I'm hoping I'm going to get to go to the All-Star game. So that should be, a good time. Just hopefully we got some more representation from the Braves there. Matt Lane, why is there not more talk about letting hires go? I'm normally of the position that coaches can only do so much. It's on the players to perform, but it just seems like a move that would at least suggest that the team is doing something, trying to shake things up. I think that was the whole third base coach thing. Not just that Tui, obviously looked a little overwhelmed there and made some bad calls recently, but I think that was just part of it, was shaking things up and doing it that way. You just changed hitting coaches. And look, I don't think it's never been done before, but to fire a hitting coach 2 months into a season, that feels a bit extreme. Not saying it won't happen, not even saying it shouldn't happen, because the offense just seems stuck in between right now and certainly doesn't feel any better than it has been in the past. But I don't think, and I think you're even saying this too, Matt, I don't think Tim Hires is completely to blame. It would just be another move like you did at third base where, hey, let's just shake things up. And again, I don't know if that's necessarily worth it right here. JJ says Ozuna's Sell and Iggy are the obvious trade options. Ozuna's power numbers declining. Iggy's play so far will hurt value. Sell is fine, but there are injury concerns. If you sell at this point, I don't think it would change the future with the return you would get. Thoughts? I don't think it would either. Like I said, I think you could trade those guys and still go for it next year. I mean, Ozuna and Iggy are on expiring deals. Sell, I think, has one more year on a team option. So yeah, I mean, you could, that's why I say if they're out of it, you can trade those guys and it's not really going to affect your future all that much. Dustin Mounts, the Braves, Sell. Would you trade Sell since he would be the biggest return, since he is technically under contract next year with a team option? I would keep him unless you get a haul back. So yeah, that's kind of what I said earlier. And I think I was alluding, I read this question earlier from you, Dustin. I don't want to trade Chris Sale because he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. And I think the Braves are still going to try to win in 2026 and should try to win in 2026. And if that's the case, you need to keep him. But if teams are willing to offer you the shortstop of the future, that would be the only way that I do it. If I'm getting as bona fide as it can be shortstop of the future for my team, especially if I'm getting a prospect that's going to be pretty cheap for a while, I don't know. I haven't done any looking, but just say Jordan Lawler from the Diamondbacks. If they were willing to trade him, I'd consider that. I'm not saying that I would do it, but I would consider that. It'd have to be that type of move. It would have to be a huge pay for me to trade Chris Sale. The Chosen One, I previously mentioned that Eric Young would be a good choice to replace Snit, and you weren't too high on that. But after seeing the Braves play flat numerous times, don't you think he can change them to be better because he helped develop the core guys there? I just don't know how influential Eric Young was in all of that. And again, maybe this is just me not being in the clubhouse and not being around the coaches enough to see that. I know he was great. I know he was a great clubhouse guy. I don't know how much he did in actually developing these core players any more than anybody else did. And it just, I want the Braves to go out and get a proven manager, whether it's a David Ross, whether it's a Joe Madden. Torey Lovullo from the Diamondbacks has always kind of been my top choice externally. I want them to go out and get a proven manager that can help them win right away. And Eric Young may be that down the road. I just don't want to be the first one to give him that head coaching job. So I'm not saying he can't do it. He might not be a good manager someday, but if the Braves are going to try to turn things around with this core and continue, I want a proven winning manager. Large Lar, what is the stuff I'm reading about the tax on publicly owned companies that might hurt the Braves in the future? I am not your tax guy, and I'm not into all of that. So hopefully somebody can help you out in the comment section below. I did just briefly read over that article, but it was way over my head. So I apologize, Large Lar. I cannot help you out there, but hopefully somebody can in the comment section. Calvin Finner, if a player is super talented, what effect does a hitting coach truly have? We have seen Olsen, Riley, Harris, and Albies all play under expectations for about a calendar year with two different coaches. At a point, it's all on them and not the coaching. That's the message I send on here quite often. It's not, the coaching can certainly help. The coaching is there to help, see if your swing is off. If they can tell that your swing is not where it should be, they can help you game plan for a particular pitcher. But ultimately, these guys are professionals. We've seen with Riley before, he has, hitting coaches that he's gone to. We saw a Chipper back in the day. He would always go to his dad. And it's just having suggestions here or there to help keep either, fix something that they feel is broken or that is changed in a player's swing, or just to get them, back on track to where their swing has been in the past. And look, again, outside perspective here, but that's what I feel like a hitting coach can do. But ultimately it comes down to the player. I just know with me personally, on a much smaller scale, I struggled mentally. Like I could have all the hitting practice in the world. Coach could tell me everything that I needed to do, but in a game, it was just different. And I never could sync that up. In a cage, I would swing perfectly on time. I'm doing everything that my coach says. I'm staying inside the baseball, all of that. But I get out there on the field and I'm pulling my head. I'm stepping in the bucket. I'm doing all of these things. And so even a coach can be telling you what you're doing wrong, and they can be telling you what you need to be doing, but it's on the player to go out there and execute that. Matt Cox, how many games under 500 do they have to be at the break for A to sell? And if so, what kind of package do you predict? So again, my cutoff line has been more than 5 games back. So not necessarily where they are under 500 or not, but if they're more than 5 games back of a wild card spot, that's kind of been my break line for me of whether or not you sell at the deadline. We talked about all the players that I think they could potentially trade, but a lot of it just depends on value. Are you just trading somebody to trade somebody, or are you actually getting something that can help you really quickly? So like if you're trading a Marcell Ozuna, are you just getting a filler prospect back that's not going to really help you do anything? Or are you getting, somebody that might be a reliever in your bullpen for years to come? And again, if you're trading to a contender, who's really giving up reliever arms like that? So again, I wouldn't just trade players for the sake of trading them. I'd rather just hold on to an Ozuna if I'm just getting a minor league filler, and hope that maybe things turn things around. Hope that things turn around. But there are certainly some players that the Braves could move at the deadline. All right, I got a lot more questions to get to. There is no way I'm going to get to all of these. We're going to try our best here next. The NBA postseason is in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. You can look at the track their trends to make a wise investment, or you can combine live prop bets and mid-game based on how the action unfolds. Oklahoma City is currently the favorite to win the NBA Finals. If you want to get in on that action, or the Braves World Series odds have plummeted to a new low. If you're feeling very optimistic about your Braves in the second half, you want to try to cash in there, you can at FanDuel.com. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/playsafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. And if you're new to FanDuel, now is the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. All right, let's get right back into the questions. Try to get to as many as I can here down the stretch. Colin Moses says, if the season continues to go horribly, could you see AA being fired at the end of the year? It seems his lack of doing anything over the last few off seasons has led us to where we are now. AA getting fired. That one's hard for me to see. I think AA has done a great job building this core. If this is it for the Atlanta Braves, and if they have to blow it up and this run is over, then I certainly have I'll certainly kind of go back on my thoughts about AA. But I still think this core has an opportunity to turn things around. I think he has the opportunity to have a big offseason if some of the payroll restraints are lifted. So I don't know that I'm quite ready to fire Alex Anthopoulos if this thing goes horribly. Emmanuel, since losing leaders like Freddie Freeman, Swanson, the Braves haven't filled that need. We've been looking for the next leader, especially in long-term locked guys like Olsen and Riley. By now, we know that as talented as they are, they clearly don't have the leadership in them. I don't know if you meant to say leadership or leadership. Either way, it's late. Look, those guys are built different. And they are definite leaders. And I don't think that Olsen and Riley fit that. And I think it's unfair to try to make them be somebody they're not. But the Braves have clearly lost some leadership in the clubhouse, from Ron Washington and Eric Young to Freddie Freeman and Dansby Swanson. And even in this latest year to Travis d'Arnaud and Charlie Morton. And again, I'm okay with letting those guys go, as I think they were past their time to play. But that certainly has lost some leadership. Those guys were big leaders and they haven't really been replaced. There's certainly not anybody position player wise that fits that. I don't know how much of a difference that really makes, but I do agree that they have certainly lost some leadership over the last several years. Justin, when do you see the Braves moving on from Snitker after this season? And again, that's not just based on what's happened this season. I said that when he signed his last contract, that I thought this would be his last year. Boo something says, is there any possibility real CJ10 will come in and save the day by becoming our coach or manager or anything? He's the best. We trust him and love him. No, I don't think there's any chance that he is coming in as manager. I do not think that is going to happen. Sam Volan, with AA signing of his contracts all ending around 2028-ish time, do you think that AA believed that the team's window would close around then and the Braves would go into rebuild at that point? Maybe the production of these players are curbing earlier than anticipated. I do think that is when the window of this core was expected to end, was 2028, 2029. Really, I look to where the Ronald Acuna Jr. contract ends. I think that's when you probably should have expected the score. I know Riley and Olsen go beyond that, but that's kind of, those are just those free agent years that you have to pay for to get them. But yeah, I would say this current run was probably going to end around 2028-ish. So we're looking at maybe 2 to 3 more years in this run, and you've wasted some of these years, certainly. Marcelo Ozuna goes down. Braves go down in the 8th. You had Riley, Olsen, and Ozuna come up, and you get nothing there against Doval. So that's tough. 9th inning, sorry. LeBronathan Jr., do you think it was time for the Braves to trade Sean Murphy? He has never had a true role on this team the last 2 years, and I can definitely see some teams such as the Padres or Rangers interested in his value. He deserves a full-time spot somewhere. I agree with you 100%. And I do think if the Braves are willing to sell, then yes, I think you look to trade him. If not, I'm okay having 2 really good catchers going forward if the DH spot is open and you can get Drake Baldwin's at bat in the lineup pretty much every day. So I think a lot depends on what happens in the offseason. If you get to this trade deadline and teams are just hungry for a catcher, like you said, the Padres or Rangers or others are in it, and they're really looking for a catcher, and you can get great value for Sean Murphy, then yeah, I'm certainly okay with that. But again, only at a good value, because there's the potential for next year that you can play both guys every day. Aaron Abston says, I know you still have to report on the Braves, but are you participating in Can Swap Week? If you don't know what that is, here's what I'm talking about. And he links to an article on Fangraphs that I did kind of scan. And it's basically where you just choose another team to cheer for. I already do that. I cheer for the Angels and the Royals. Those are my American League teams. The Reds are my other National League team that I like to cheer for. But mainly American League teams, because I want to stay away from our National League rivals. But I kind of already do that. I think the Twins were the team that they suggested Braves fans go cheer for. I really have no interest in watching the Twins, but I would suggest to you that if the Braves are the only team that you watch, especially right now, pick another team to watch as well. Fire Alex Anthopoulos says, realistically, is there any chance that AA is on the hot seat? We kind of already talked about that. I guess so. Again, it all depends on, is this Alex or is this financial constraints that are put on him? He has said publicly, that he doesn't have any financial restraints. He's also lied to our face many, many times. So again, that's just the part that we don't know. It feels pretty obvious that there were financial constraints this offseason. Jacob Cole, I've been trying not to let other people's opinions on this team sway mine. However, it's getting a bit rough to watch this team. I just wanted to hear your perspective on how you think things will turn out for this team this year. As I said the other day or this morning, I don't know where we are, but I feel like the loss to Arizona is a turning point one way or the other. Either that's going to be rock bottom for you and you're going to turn things around. And I still believe that this team can do that. I know it's going to take an incredible run, but I think they're capable of doing it. And I feel like if they can do that and turn things around, there's still a chance for this team this year. If it doesn't, and it just continues on this steady decline, I think things are going to have to get blown up in the offseason, starting with the manager and maybe making some roster changes too. Good play by Luke Williams in the game now at shortstop. Tim Barnes, how do we reopen the World Series window? Again, like we talked about, I think you make some big changes in the offseason, starting with the manager. And then I think you try to make some significant changes to tweak the roster. And I think you spend some big money. Again, you got under the tax this year, hopefully to spend more money this upcoming offseason. Nate, is there any potential ideas for trade at center field at the deadline if Michael Harris can't figure something out? If Michael Harris continues to be the worst hitter in baseball, despite what he is doing defensively, and if this team is still in it, I'm not completely against going and getting a center fielder that can also play really good defense, maybe not even to the level of Michael Harris, but just isn't an automatic out in the lineup. I'm hoping Michael Harris turns it around, and I'm hopeful that he will do that. But if you're to that point, I'm okay with going out and getting somebody that you can trust to maybe fill in for Michael Harris for a bit. Not saying it's going to happen or that it should happen, but again, if he continues to be the worst hitter in the league, I don't know if that's enough to overcome at two positions. Like, I'm glad you need to have great defense at shortstop and center field. That needs to be the priority at those positions, but you can't have two Gold Glovers who are also two of the worst hitters in baseball. Dylan Lee with a big strikeout there. Nate, is it time to give Trevor Bauer a call? No, it is not. Another one from Nate. If they do fire Snit, who do they look towards replacing him with? Internally, I think it would be Walt Weiss. Externally, David Ross. Again, my guys, I said earlier, Torey Lovello. Another one from Nate. All these from Nate here. What is your new expected win total for this team? At the start, it was over 100. It was not over 100 for me. I think it was like 94 at the beginning of the year. I'd say if this team can get to 90 wins, it would be kind of a minor miracle. Another one, last one here. This one from Nate. For the most part, this team's lost games by 1 to 2 runs and have avoided blowouts while typically winning their own games by 5 or more. What do you think of this? And do you think this is a good sign that they were not getting blown out? I mean, I guess, in hindsight, it's more painful when you lose them close, but I think the hope is that eventually you'll start winning some of these close games, that it's great you've been in all these games. You've had a chance to win all of them, and hopefully it's going to turn things around where you do start winning these close games. So I think it does give you a little bit of hope that, hey, it's not like they're getting blown out every night. They're in every single game. They're just not getting that big hit. And if you can start doing that, start winning these close games, then you can see them easily start to turn things around. All right, that will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Was hoping to go straight to the finish here, but hopefully we're going to have a little bit of extra innings going on. But no postcast tonight with Lindsay working unless we just go super late in this one. But the Auburn game's in a rain delay, so probably not going to happen. Sorry. Just went in a circle there. But thank you all for joining me late on this Friday night. Jeff Berry, Hunter Lacey, Hayden Harris, Witty Banter, Mass Boost. Thank you all for joining me here late night. Miguel Fria as well. Thank you as much for all the questions. James Lester, you're welcome for the psychotherapy session that we had, especially on Friday morning's podcast. Gave you a bit of a therapy session for the Atlanta Braves. But thank you all for joining me. Again, thank you for submitting all those great and wonderful questions. Over 30 questions we had submitted for this podcast, and I got through all of them. So that will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves, though. Let's hopefully we go out and get a win here against the Giants and get on a roll. And Braves turn things around Because you're right, Witty Banter. It is just June. There is time left, but it's got to happen soon. And let's hope that it starts happening here on Friday night against the Giants. Hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, all those good things. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast. And we will talk to you next time.